Turner was reported missing from a Golden Hill park. Prosecutors are getting ready to try his stepfather for the little boy's murder. Tonight, we're hearing from a private investigator who worked the infamous case. CBS News 8's Richard Allen is live downtown with his insights and the field trip the prosecution is pushing for. Richard?
And Carlo, 39-year-old Tieray Jones remained expressionless for the most part as he appeared in Superior Court here earlier today. His court-appointed public defender and the prosecution argued over what evidence could and could not be presented to a jury, including details of his 2006 conviction of felony assault.
It is an offense that is more than 10 years old. It is an offense that happened after the charged offenses in this case.
The judge, though, disagreed.
I think that the first-degree felony assault in 2006 should be admitted.
Back in 2002, Tieray Jones told investigators he left Jahi unattended at this playground in Golden Hill while he went to buy a soda, claiming that when he returned, Jahi was gone. Law enforcement and volunteers launched a massive search, including the Miramar landfill, but never found any evidence a crime had been committed, and no evidence that Jahi had actually ever been at the playground.
There was not one sign, not one fingerprint, not one strand of hair. Jahi was not there.
Private investigator Bill Garcia, who had worked on the case for Jahi's family, considered Tieray Jones the prime suspect from the start, based on his cavalier behavior in searching for Jahi.
I believe a lot in karma, and I think it has come back to bite them where it's going to hurt the most.
Also in today's hearing, the prosecution made its case for being able to physically bring a jury to the playground to get a first-hand view of where Jahi allegedly went missing.
A motion opposed by the defense and by the judge Wednesday, who said such a field trip with the jury would be, quote, fraught with issues.
Taking a bus full of jurors out to Balboa Park and having them out there, instruct them not to say anything, they inevitably talk. There's a tremendous expense involved.
Now, both sides are due back here in court January 4th for further proceedings. As for the trial itself, it is set for the last day of January after a jury is seated. As for
On April 25th of 2022, 2-year-old Jahi Turner will be reported missing by his 22-year-old stepfather, Tieray Jones, from a San Diego park which was located in the Golden Hills area. But before we begin discussing the circumstances that led up to the disappearance of 2-year-old Jahi Turner, we're going to revisit this case starting from the beginning, which brings us to Frederick, Maryland. This is where Jahi Marquez Turner was born on February 10th of 2000 to a 16-year-old teenage mother by the name of Tamika Turner and his father, Tremaine Sampson. 16-year-old Tamika Turner and Jahi's biological father, Tremaine Sampson, had a relationship that was based on intimacy only. So it was no surprise that things didn't work out between the two, and Tamika would end up raising Jahi alone and also with the help of her mother, Penny Thompson. Tamika was originally from Washington, D.C., but would relocate to Frederick, Maryland, and she will begin dating a local drug dealer by the name of Tieray Jones. Tieray had been introduced to Tamika at a very young age, around 13, but they didn't start a relationship or started dating until a little after she had Jahi. Tieray was described as being a charming and smart man. He was also from Washington, D.C. He had a criminal past, which included several drug charges, but he was always a lady man who lived the fast life. Despite his lifestyle, Tamika would become infatuated by the 22-year-old, and not too soon after that, Tamika and Tieray would decide to get married in August of 2001, and by December of 2001, she would enlist into the military and would be stationed on the Coronado base in San Diego, California. Before relocating to San Diego, Tamika and her mother, Penny Thompson, would make an arrangement for Jahi to stay behind with Penny while Tamika and Tieray get settled in San Diego, and then their plan was to send Jahi once everything was settled and everything was okay. And in early of 2002, Tamika and Tieray would move to San Diego, California, and they would settle in a small apartment in the Golden Hills area in San Diego, California, which was not too far from downtown San Diego. Tamika would eventually have to report to the naval ship on the Mountain Rushmore in order to complete her exercises and training on the Coronado base, when she would receive a phone call from Child Protective Services of Maryland regarding the welfare of her 2-year-old son, Jahi. The CPS social worker would tell Tamika that she had 24 hours to retrieve Jahi from her mother, Penny's care because of the suspected drug abuse. Panicking with anxiety, Tamika would take the next flight out to Maryland to retrieve Jahi, and her and Jahi will fly back to San Diego the next day. And once Tamika and Jahi arrived back to San Diego, Tamika would stock up the house with goods and a few groceries with the little money she had for her husband and her 2-year-old son, Jahi, before heading back towards the Mountain Rushmore. On April 25th of 2022, Tieray Jones will report his stepson Jahi missing after claiming he and Jahi was visiting a Golden Hills Park on 28th and Cedar, which was located just minutes from downtown San Diego.
Long blues, like a jumpsuit pants, like an overall jump.
Once San Diego detectives would arrive at the scene, Tieray would tell the deputies that he and Jahi had arrived at the park that afternoon, and Jahi had become thirsty, so Tieray would walk to a nearby soda machine, leaving 2-year-old Jahi playing alone at the playground. He also stated that there was a woman, and this woman had 3 other children who was on the playground at the time that Jahi was left behind. Eventually, police would release a sketch of the woman who was seen that day at the park near Jahi before he disappeared, and she would get in touch with the San Diego detectives, and she stated that indeed her and her children were at the park that day, but they did not see Jahi nor Tieray at the park. A search team would arrive at the Golden Hills Park on 28th and Cedar, and along with volunteers around the neighborhood would begin searching for the 2-year-old toddler. Searchers would search the parks, the canyons, and other nearby areas surrounding the perimeter in hopes of finding little Jahi alive and well. Detectives would escort Tieray to the San Diego Police Department to conduct an interview and to collect his statements on the events leading up to Jahi's disappearance.
So you're in charge. Okay, you got plenty of food, diapers, and all that kind of stuff? Okay.
We had enough food to get us by.
All right. So Monday, what do you do with me?
See, Monday, what did we do? We didn't really do anything. Went out, messed around with the car for a little while. Took him out to the playground that's right in our development.
San Diego detectives would immediately start suspecting that Tieray was being untruthful. He was misleading and fabricating the events that led to Jahi's disappearance. San Diego detectives would get in touch with Jahi's 18-year-old mother, Jahi Turner, and would inform her of Jahi's disappearance. At the time, she was aboard the Mountain Rushmore, a Navy ship which had pulled out to sea to perform naval exercises. Upon arriving home with San Diego detectives, Tamika would head up the flight of stairs to her small bedroom apartment in Golden Hills. She would be greeted by numerous police detectives who were canvassing her apartment and searching for evidence that can lead to the disappearance of 2-year-old Jahi. While searching for evidence, SD detectives would retrieve a journal that belonged to Tieray Jones, and this journal contained handwritten notes that he would write often to his wife Tamika while she was on sea duty. Just a few days before he reported Jahi missing, Tieray would write a passage in his journal stating that Jahi had hit his head while being in his care. He said that Jahi was startled by the family's cat. He proceeded to say that Jahi was fine and the bump was going down as he placed some ice on the toddler's head to keep it from swelling. Another updated passage, which was April 23rd, 2002, 2 days before Jahi was reported missing, Tieray's journal would also state that Jahi was acting funny and he wouldn't talk or interact with Tieray. He also continued to say that it wasn't his fault and that he didn't want Jahi hating him for something that he couldn't control. When asked about the statements that he written in his journal about Jahi, Tieray Jones would tell the San Diego detective that he wrote those statements because he felt that the separation anxiety that Jahi was exhibiting was causing him to be disconnected from Tieray and his behavior of being shut down. He believed that Jahi was taking it out on him. Authorities would also collect a Elmo blanket that was stained with a drop of blood that belonged to Jahi. And during their investigation, detectives would begin to question witnesses from Tamika and Tieray's apartment building. Witnesses would state that on the day of Wednesday morning, April 24, 2002, a day before Jahi was reported missing, the neighbors saw 22-year-old Tieray Jones take out 3 separate trash bags. This neighbor also said that it didn't look like it was trash. The neighbor stated that he or she saw Tieray come down the stairway of their apartment complex carrying 2 large black trash bags that were extremely round. And when he or she made eye contact with Tieray, he quickly glanced away before walking to the furthest trash bin, then the one that was closest to the apartment that he shared with him and his wife and Jahi. Another neighbor claimed that he or she had witnessed Tieray that morning carrying out another white trash bag, but neither of these neighbors saw Tieray with Jahi ever. On April 25th of 2002, the day that Jahi was reported missing, the early hours before he was reported missing, around 11:39, 11:40, 11:45, 11:57, and finally at 12:03 p.m., Tieray Jones would leave his wife a message on her voicemail stating that it was an emergency. Now, during the interview with the San Diego detectives, Tieray was asked about the phone calls and the messages that he would send on Tamika's voicemail, and they would ask him what was the emergency, what was the urgency. Tieray would respond by ending and terminating the interview immediately. Jahi's case would remain cold and stagnant, and his mother, Tamika, would get out of the military and move back to Maryland with her husband, Tieray. And just a few years after Jahi's disappearance, Tamika and Tieray would have a son of their own. And a few years later after that, they would finally divorce. Between 2010 and 2011, Tieray would get into an altercation involving Jahi's situation in Maryland, and someone will pull out an automatic weapon and would proceed to shoot Tieray in the leg, and that would cause him to move out of Maryland, and he would relocate to North Carolina out of fear for his life. During his time between Maryland and North Carolina, Tieray had committed a few crimes and he had collected a few charges and was in and out of jail. Around this time is where Jahi's mother, Jahi Turner, would realize that Tieray's story and his account to what happened to Jahi was completely fabricated. And in 2016, Tieray Jones would be extradited to San Diego, California, and face charges for taking the life of 2-year-old Jahi Turner back in 2002. In 2016, Tieray Jones will go on trial for taking the life of 2-year-old Jahi Turner. His defense will claim that the blood-stained Elmo blanket that belonged to Jahi was from constant nosebleeds that Jahi would have over the course of his 2 years. And despite finding a trash bag full of clothes and items belonging to Jahi, which was discovered in a dumpster a little bit after he was reported missing, and was identified by his mother as being Jahi's personal belongings, his trial would end in 2018 as a mistrial due to the jury's deadlock. And Tieray would go free and wouldn't be tried for taking the life of 2-year-old Jahi Turner again. Unfortunately, Tieray Jones will never be retried for taking the life of 2-year-old Jahi Turner, even though his mother, Tamika, had went to the judge and begged for a retrial. It was completely denied. Jahi's body has never been found, and his whereabouts remain unknown to this day. Detectives believe that Tieray Jones had accidentally struck the 2-year-old out of frustration, and 2-year-old Jahi succumbed to his injuries and was placed in the dumpster. They also believe that Jahi had passed away 2 days before he was reported missing. Please continue to pray for the family of Jahi Marquez Turner, even though that they didn't receive the justice that they deserve, but I do believe in a higher power. And we're sending love and memories to Jahi. May his legacy continue to live on with those who miss him the most. Until next case, be nice to each other, love each other, and pray for one another. Thanks for watching.